it up.
You can be like Two-Face from Batman.
Yes. Ooh, yeah, I'm Two-Face. Hi, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing, live show number 135. Let me while I get my good side, because this side's not good. I was trying to make up a good story. Ed wants to keep with the I got struck by lightning. I want to go with the fact that I am trying to do character acting for the walk-on for The Lion King, and Robert just shakes his head.
I think it's vendor. I think it was vendor negotiations that got a little rough.
Well, you know, but contracts are contracts. Got to go over and make sure you follow the delay. Yeah, but thank you very much. Yes, it is. This is what video shows don't do well, because it's like, yes, I'll just sit like this the entire time. Mr. Robert, yes. Okay, my contemplative look. Mr. Robert, as always, thank you so much. You're the one that gen up some content this week, and it actually started, I think, Mr. Ed, with you with the Rutrow. Was it your Rutrow first?
It was my Rutrow find, but of course Robert knew everything about it, so
the man's a veritable machine.
It's still kind of his Rutrow.
Okay, well, which Rutrow would you like to hit, Mr. Robert?
Well, we can hit we can open with the Rutrow instead of closing with the Rutrow. Let me post it here in the comments. Well, if I can get it pasted. I can't really talk and paste at the same time, I've discovered. So
apparently I can't seem to walk and walk a dog at the same time either. So for those who want to know the real story, I have a little black puppy named Edison, and he decided in the middle of the night while I'm walking him to wrap the leash around my legs, and I had one hand with a flashlight, one hand with his holding thing, and just decided to face dive into the sidewalk rather than let go of anything, which would make common sense, right? I mean, why not do self-preservation over holding a puppy? But no, I didn't. I face planted.
Yeah. So the Rutrow of the week, I think fair, really does.
I do like to pick on Uber, and it is an Uber-specific Rutrow, but I can't remember. I can't remember Dara getting any of these types of missteps at Expedia.
No,
I mean it doesn't mean he didn't, but it didn't come to mind, and that's actually what made it stick out to me. Is it seemed like a rare situation for Dara.
Yeah.
Do you think it's more the culture that he's just one against a million at that point, that there's so much that has to get changed internally?
I thought Travis had taken over his Twitter feed. Was my theory. But the story is that Dara Khosrowshahi, who's now the former CEO of Expedia, now CEO of Uber, wound up tweeting that the MIT, a researcher at MIT, came up with a little report that said the average Uber driver made somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 to $4 an hour, sort of thing. So Dara tweeted back, MIT equals mathematically incompetent theories, at least as it pertains to ride sharing. And that says, at Tech Review report differs markedly from other academic studies and the rideshare guy recent survey. Our analysis, medium at Uber policy, blah, blah, blah. And of course, Uber has a chief economist who's a pretty smart guy. But I mean, lots of blowback. I mean, just, the really snarky, condescending nature of it, number one. And then, of course, citing the rideshare guy as a more credible source than MIT. So Dara just got a world of, PR pain from that. But the reality is that the MIT study was highly flawed, pulled it back really, really quick. I'll also post the MIT study here as well. But yeah, they blew it big time, and I don't know what happened with their review process or whatever. But it
and I don't know why. I mean, if Dara really wanted to kind of save face, is thanks for retracting it. Sorry, I picked on you. Because it seems like if you really look at it, I didn't see what he did as overly wrong. But again, in this world of hypersensitivity to anything, you have to be careful in the media. That's why it's so risky that the three of us do this show, because constantly we're putting stuff out there that is just, could end other people's careers.
Well, I guess one of your friends came by and said, "Hey, I didn't like what you had to say about me the other day."
That's the story you need to go with.
But I mean, in all good fun, I mean, because it is frustrating, and I don't know if I would be able to hold back. I mean, I probably would have been a bit more brutal than Dara was, and it's actually why I wanted it to be the Rutrow, because I can kind of see where Dara was coming from. You know?
Oh yeah.
MIT put out this piece of data, obviously without enough review, right? To take care that this is MIT putting this data out. So there is an entire section of the world that will just look at it and say, yep, this is right, everything else is wrong.
Well, and if it's
wrong.
Hi, Tim.
the voice of the State University of New Jersey, Rutgers, chimes in on the topics.
By the way, these are purely my opinions. The State University of New Jersey can neither endorses nor holds the same values, and frequently distances themselves immediately.
Tim said, "What? Oh no. Oh hell no." Hi, Mr. Tim.
Hi guys, sorry for being a few minutes late, but
we're talking about Dara's little oopsie tweet, which kind of harkened back to an earlier era at Uber when he looked at the MIT the bad data. Now, what's interesting is on the Focusrite little email bucket that goes back and forth with all the Focusrite analysts, folks were jumping all over it because they're like, wait a second, Dara is all over research quality. I mean, he's really got an eye for this stuff and methodology, and they were in the right. And actually, I just posted the revised study. I mean, basically the guy came back at MIT and goes, yeah, our numbers were wrong. It's closer to like $10 an hour. So oops, by a factor of 2.5, or right. Whatever they were off. Not so good, right? But again, the way he handled it was just completely wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there's two different factors here, which it's nuanced and complicated. And unfortunately, in the digital space, neither of those things are easy, right?
Right.
So, Dara was completely correct in his estimation of what was going on with the MIT thing. They pulled the study, they pulled it back, so that's good.
And fixed it quick.
Yeah.
Based on Uber's numbers, they went, oh, wow, we didn't look at that stuff, and we didn't really have numbers that were
right.
Not
at the same time.
Bad on them.
At the same time, he was completely wrong. Because there's a way to do it, especially with the brand reputation that Uber has, and that's
right.
I think it was a misstep in that regard. I can't remember I'm not going to get the quote exactly right. There's a quote from like Politics or something along those lines, which is, if you're explaining, you're losing. Right? Like people have to get it immediately.
Well, and I think
what people get immediately is that Dara just did what Travis was always famous for, of punching down and doing it in a kind of dick way, for lack of a better term. And
which is a rare misstep for him.
At least a rare misstep. Yep.
Well, and I think it speaks partly to the culture of the companies that, at Expedia, coming out of Microsoft, right, being birthed by Microsoft, and kind of, the rigor and strict, control they had over things. They always had that very, very well structured. I mean, everybody at Expedia. I mean, you meet somebody at a cocktail party and bring up a subject that maybe they shouldn't be talking about. They aren't talking about it, generally speaking. I mean, there may be an individual here or there who's like that person, but as an organization, they are pretty much on the company line and with the program, and things are getting, rolled through legal or investor relations or PR or whoever needs to look at it. Google, similar, pretty highly, structured company when it comes to dealing with that stuff. And here, Dara, I don't know, without those constraints, maybe just kind of went, hey, here's what we're doing. And he could have said it so many other ways, like, hey, MIT, I think you need to check your math, right? Here's our assessment. What do you think?
Right.
Sort of thing. But,
or MIT. We have a pretty strong peer review process here at Uber.
Exactly.
If you would like, I'd be happy to share our design on peer review prior to publishing findings.
But
that would have, if you wanted to be kitschy and put a jab, that wouldn't have, I don't think it would have. I think it would have been funny. I think we would have been talking about the Rondeau backwards. We'd be talking about MIT's Rondeau and how Dara put MIT in their spot.
Well, I think this also is slightly indicative of the cultural shift for us. And I'm not trying to go old school to new culture or something, but I think this is the social impact on cultural identity of corporations, where the great companies and great leaderships of companies, there was a symbiotic representation that they accepted the mantle of representation, that their individuality blended with what they represented. And so when you had somebody speak from IBM, they stood at the pulpit almost of what IBM represented, and MIT, and the expectations of what those are. But now that we allow corporations to have personalities and identities, and we demand that the people that lead them be as much like us as anybody else, it's an unfair assessment for them. They're representing thousands of employees. They're representing a investment of hundreds, if not thousands, of people beyond that. They should pause and not be themselves as quickly as they should be those that represent what they are in leadership of.
Well, especially when your corporate culture has been a huge part of your problem.
Right.
There should be a pause.
This could have been a leaning move the other way.
I'm going to say the opposite. If this was an MIT study on Wendy's, Wendy's would have trolled the heck out of MIT. Everyone would have talked about how Wendy's troll game is fantastic, because it is. Same thing with KFC. Why are the food companies really good at personality, by the way? Because I don't know if you've seen KFC's flub up where one of their locations ran out of chicken. Of chicken, and so
oh no, that was all of the UK. All of the UK ran out of chicken.
And so they had a box of chicken, but instead of saying, and it was a big ad they ran, but instead of it being KFC, it was FCK, and then it was just we messed up. Who heard of a chicken restaurant without chicken?
I don't think we're being different. I think we're saying the same thing. That is the representation of the company. I'm not against the company having that identity.
But when you're Uber, who has been Satan this whole time.
Well, and that's the key right there. Ed, I agree unequivocally with what you just said. Certain brands can get away with saying certain things in certain ways
because they have good equity.
Because they've got good equity.
They have some equity.
Uber's running on fumes.
Right. And what people who don't follow this as closely as we do just saw is, here's another Uber CEO being a dick, just like the last Uber CEO.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, that's the difference.
Instead of defining the difference, he created the commonality again.
He created the commonality. That's right.
Yep. So I feel bad that it happened to him, because he's a good dude. And
I think he's doing a really good job there.
It's hard to feel bad.
And he probably was.
It's hard to feel bad for someone who's soon to be a billionaire. So he's going to go to sleep on his giant bed of money.
So this is a funny. I'm going to go. This is one of our digressions. One of our world famous digressions.
Yes.
I had a conversation with the CEO of a company once upon a time about a guy who'd preceded them in the role, and basically had milked the company pretty heavily. And as we were having this discussion, I said, "How does this guy sleep at night?" And his follow, the guy who followed him went, "I'm betting pretty well, actually." I'm betting pretty comfortably,
If you are freed from ethics and that sort of thing, and boy, you probably sleep really great. So, because it's not bothering you. So
yeah, exactly. Well, you know what they say: if you can fake sincerity, you've got it made.
Right. So I thought, are we done with the Rondeau besides Lauren's Rondeau? Tim, did you catch that? Look at Lauren's face.
I saw
and
that.
His hand.
What?
Yes.
I didn't want to call attention to it, but dude, what the hell happened, man?
Started the show with it. I'm like, what happened to your
Okay.
What happened to your face?
It's Mikhail Gorbachev's wine spot has migrated.
Wine spot only a little larger.
But first,
little
Tim,
hands
prior to Lauren telling you and us telling you our theories, you need to create a theory on what happened to Lauren's face.
I assume that he got too close to the one true source of knowledge. And, it's sort of like looking into the Ark of the Covenant. And he closed his eyes at the last minute, which is why he didn't
at the last minute
completely
melt away. Yes, like
right,
a wax
but
figure.
Lauren is always seeking the one true source of knowledge.
One true source.
This is what happens when you fly a little too close.
I like
to
that
the sun.
story.
That was
I like that. That's much better. Yeah.
I think there's a different story. It happened in New York. It was after the Adrian Awards, where he had witnessed, the 25 top minds. He'd had a couple too many. He had had a couple too many drinks. He went to a tattoo parlor, and he asked them to put, he gave them the list. Well, no. He wanted Tammy's. He wanted Tammy on there, but they messed up and gave him Tim. So he had to have it lasered off. They're going to try again. So
the only problem with that story, Robert, is it would be much paler a tattoo. My skin tone is affectionately referred to as pallor.
Well, my theory was that Lauren has been struck by lightning for a seventh time.
For a seventh time, yeah. Throw that one in there. I got struck by lightning, yes. I like Robert's original one, which was had intense contract negotiations. And, it just got a little
speaking as a guy from New Jersey, I'm familiar with that level of contract negotiations.
It's
the reality was
contract.
That's a really nice digital marketing agency you got there. It's a shame that something happened to it.
Fires happen all the time. Damn, it'd be a shame to have your electricity. Yeah, no, I like Robert's idea that my dog learned too much off of YouTube, because what happened was my little black puppy in the middle of the dark night walk on a sidewalk decided to wrap him around my legs with the leash. And because I didn't want to let go of the flashlight nor the leash holder, I decided to face plant on the sidewalk. So
the dogs learn these things on YouTube. There's been some research.
I've caught them. I've caught them on the computer. Caught them on the computer. Yeah.
All right, back to adding value to people's day.
Adding to value, yes. To husband.
I like Robert's topic about how Marriott stands alone in its move to cut meetings commissions.
Yes.
I thought that was juicy.
Oh, well, here, let me post this. So the issue here is when people say the hotel industry is similar to the airline industry, this is where you see a dramatic difference. So when the airline industry introduces things like bag fees or whatever, they, some distasteful thing like cutting commissions, something that might be a little bit controversial, the others kind of fall into line. But again, that's a little bit of a different situation where airlines control origin, destination pairs, and frequencies and
monopolies. What?
Yeah, well, oligopolies, please. But in that situation, so Marriott goes out and I think took one page of the airline playbook and said, okay, we're going to cut commissions on group business. And I think they sort of thought, well, yeah, all the other guys in the room would like this to probably happen. And so they made the move and nobody else did. They were left all by themselves. So my question is, did they actually have some back channel conversations, which of course would be highly illegal, sort of thing to do something like this. But did they actually have those and the other guys baited them into it and said, oh yeah, we're right behind you, go for it. And then,
oh, if that's the story, that's amazing. I would love that so much more.
I don't know. That's option one. Option two is Marriott just thought we are so big they will follow and got, a little bit of ego
I don't know,
going.
man. Because in those big box kind of generic branded properties that, our group houses, group business is really important. Think about some of the biggest assets of Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt, and their gigantic group houses.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you want to bite the hand that feeds you. And is it my understanding too that the group commissions weren't overly gougy, anyways? Were they?
No, they're like 10%. I mean, it's like
right. I mean,
like 10%. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So they looked at wanted to cut it.
Yeah. I'm an Occam's razor kind of guy. As fun as the conspiracy theory one is, I doubt that's what that seems unlikely to me.
I know. Probably.
It's much easier explained by they thought they had a good idea. They're in a position right now where they're pushing back on any place where they're spending money on commissions and are able to do so, and figured, hey, here's another place we spend a lot of money on commissions, so why don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that one.
What's the old line? Never ascribe to malice that which can be more adequately summed up by incompetence.
So explains most of anything that's happened in life. He does.
Let me recap this. Tim Peters says that Marriott was just incompetent in this decision. I just want to make sure I'm understanding what. Okay.
Well, I mean, look, there's only two possible options. There's only three possible options, right? One is they were dumb. One is they were evil, and one is they were right. And I suspect that, if they weren't right, it's less likely that they were evil than they were dumb.
Cool.
I have screwed up many, many times in my career.
That is something you can't argue.
Right. I've screwed up a lot of times. Now they might turn out to be right in the long term. Tim's
career cycle, I had the most interesting conversation yesterday. With someone who doesn't know I know Tim Peter.
Those are usually the best ones.
And so this conversation. Because listen, his problem that intersects with your earlier career has nothing to do with you. So this was a hotel owner who had a budget brand flag.
Yeah.
That turned out to be, and I won't say who because that's mean. In a time frame where Tim was involved in that budget brand flag.
Oh, sure. Which, by the way, for the record, was 11 years ago. So, I mean...
Right. But still, whatever.
Sure.
But so here's the funny. He's like, I'm now with this flag that I'm with because it's more of a membership because I got really screwed by my old budget brand flag. And
sure.
Did things like really bad for hotel owners, made some bad decisions and stuff, which I wouldn't have instantly thought of Tim Peter for that. If not, he was explaining to me the process he's going through to improve his property and where his sources of data on how he's doing this. First, he mentioned Stuart Butler, who he knows I know because Stuart recommended he talk to me. Right. And he's like, yeah, I love their podcast, the Fuel podcast, and, it's great. And then, I'm giving him some advice on where to get started on the marketing side. And he's like, man, you sound a lot like this other great podcast I listen to, Tim Peter. And I'm like, wow. So 11-year-old Tim was part of the problem. 11 years ago, Tim was part of the problem. Modern Tim is part of the solution.
Well, there you go.
How well
it's the circle of life, Tim Peter.
Well, that's very nice to hear. I have to tell a funny story, not that might risk sounding a little defensive, but it goes back to the evil versus incompetence thing. So in my Wyndham days, we screwed something up badly. And I called the master franchisee for Canada for one of our brands to basically fall on my sword because he was super pissed, right? And I called him up and I said, I just want to let you know I take full responsibility for this and blah, 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 blah. And he let out this like little sigh, a very, very brief sigh, and he said, that's a very gracious thing of you to do for all the other people who were in the room when this decision was made.
Wow.
And I was like, oh. Yeah, he was like, he said, I accept your apology, etc. I'd love to know what you're going to do to fix it. I also am fully aware. I know your company. There's no way you made this decision all by yourself. And the reality was we weren't evil. We were just incompetent. We thought X.
It happens.
And our customer, and there was and it was a great lesson in groupthink, right? Because we all agreed there's no way this is a problem because we all knew.
Right.
Right. So, yeah. But it was such a great line that has stuck with me. That's got to be 15 years ago,
yeah,
and that has that's stuck with me for a long time.
That's a really good one. Sorry, it was just funny, and and then I actually was like, so do you ever catch a web show by chance? No, but that sounds really interesting. I'm like, oh, okay, because Tim Peters, Stuart Butler, Robert Cole, and Lauren Gray and myself are on a web show. It's not nearly as high quality as the podcast that you're listening to, but the first 20 minutes is usually somewhat structured and valuable.
Yeah. But speaking to that end, Tim, I always applaud your logic process to this. I mean, for me, my first reaction to the Marriott program was basically they got too big for their britches. I've engaged in Marriott a few things now, and they tend to walk in the room with a bit of a swagger, just because they think they own all the existing inventory and don't see anybody as direct credible threats in most marketplaces. And so I tend to be knee-jerk, single-minded when it comes to these responses. And you have very collectively a way of going to say, well, either they're dumb, they're evil, or, they were right. And I applaud the idea that you break it down into segmentations, then do comparisons where I'm just kind of like, this is what I think, boom, that's it. And then prove me off of that. So,
thank you very much. I appreciate that. I mean, here's the thing. I'm not willing to call it on the Marriott thing. Unless I missed a news story, did they back away from this and they're going back to full commission?
No, but here's the thing.
They're alone.
Right. They can't now. Like, they have to actually, if anything, they need to double down and create a whole new approach to groups that has some better benefit for the group managers, so they don't completely burn that business, but they can't go back.
Right. No. And I'm wondering in 2 years, will everybody be doing this? Maybe they ultimately will be right. Once upon a time, the airlines said we're going to stop paying commissions to the travel agents. And literally I shouldn't say everybody, quite a few people at the time said, oh, this will never last.
Yeah, but the airlines in all of these moves, they know the outcome. They know the outcomes already, right? So I can't think of an example where an airline has done something and then backed off of it. Yeah, aside from, whatever, buying a certain kind of aircraft.
United
telling Boeing they don't want to.
Beating employees to get them off planes.
I was about to say they backed off of how
they backed off of that real quick.
Busting guitars and things like that. Well, I think that people was a continuation of busting guitars. So.
It's my favorite missed opportunity that United had, which was they could have changed their tagline. We came to kick ass and sell seats.
And we're all out of seats.
We're all out of seats.
Most so I guess the question is with the meeting planners, this would be a smart move for Marriott, and I'm sure their assessment was, hey, we've got all this inventory, it's in demand, they're going to book it anyway, we don't need to pay these commissions, which is exactly the thought process behind the airlines, right? It's just like, hey, we're just taking orders, these guys aren't shifting share to us or doing anything like that. They're just booking it and they're going to do it anyway. Their behavior is not going to change, so pull the trigger. But with Marriott being alone and being so large, it is an opportunity for the rest of the industry to kind of go, hey guys, we're kinder and friendlier and that sort of thing, which, look at Booking.com, played that very well with Expedia in Europe, right? Expedia came in very arrogant, much higher, compensation levels, and Booking was friendlier, kinder, and
nobody's doing it.
If I was the whoever's in charge of these decisions at Hilton, or who else would you say competes with Marriott?
I would say Omni should jump
Hyatt and Omni. I would go to all the biggest group planning people, and I would offer a 5-year additional commission for an exclusive agreement.
And that's the thing.
Because here's the thing: we all know at some point in the 5-year horizon, demand's going to soften a little bit. If you can make it to where the most powerful group houses can't go back to Marriott, it's worth the penalty for the next however long it takes for the market to cool a bit, to be able to just really dominate the potential of this being a bad decision.
And that bothers me. Bells did this, by the way. Preferred actually sent out a big thing of obviously it's optional because Preferred is a membership organization, but here's all the benefits we would like to offer to meeting planners and the like. We would encourage you to participate in this, and has done a really nice promotion. Obviously, Preferred is a much smaller company. Not that they're a small company, but I mean, Preferred, Marriott,
but Preferred has some pretty big, but if I was there's a considerable amount of Preferred's business that relies on groups.
Yeah,
huge.
I thought it was
huge
brilliant.
portion.
I thought it was.
But if I was Hyatt or Hilton, I'd be going after the jugular of like, I'll give you 5 years of this guaranteed, but you have to agree that you can never book a Marriott. That's what I'd be doing.
Well, they can't.
I don't know if you can legally do that.
That's restrained to trade.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that violates some RICO statutes.
Awful nice meeting business you got here, Shane.
The New Jersey
bringing that joke back. We're just going to keep that joke back all day.
Coming back. You know what? Prefer, because I was sitting here thinking that to Ed's is like, why isn't anybody just?
And
hey guys, guess what?
The circle of life. Lauren dies out. Holly joins.
No, it's not Holly. It's going to be Darlene. Darlene, I gave Holly's code to her. Holly is there. She is. Darlene.
Lauren, can't you just give Darlene her own code?
I don't have enough. I got to rotate them around. It's like Holly says she wasn't making it. Give it to Darlene. I'm like, Darlene, here's the code.
Okay.
Yes, hi, Darlene. I don't know if we were catching the tail end part of it. We were talking about how with Marriott's change in process with meeting planners and the commission space, that all these other companies should be all into this space right now and taking advantage of to Ed's point, renegotiating long-term durability of contracts and giving incentive values so that they can lock them in a little bit better than what they have them now. So,
yeah, I heard the tail end of that.
Yeah, the kinder, gentler. Yeah, more meeting planner friendly folks, I think is the strategy being employed by probably everybody else in the space.
Well, and maybe Omni would be the one to be really aggressive about it, because weren't they the ones who were trying to take over Gaylord, and Gaylord messed them up by getting a deal with Marriott? So Omni should be like,
oh, Omni, Omni, Hyatt. I mean, Hyatt. I think it's. Boy, well, there are more Hyatt places and Hyatt houses and things like that, but I think it's still group is like 40% of Hyatt.
Oh yeah, Omni is strong.
All those Regencies. Oh yeah, same with Omni. Yeah, these things live and die, and even a lot of luxury groups. I mean, group is a hugely important dimension of the business. So. Yeah, for everybody except for some economy guys who have no meeting space, and even with that, they're booking, things out of citywides and other other things and overflows and signing contracts for it as well, even though they aren't getting the space in their own facilities. So
absolutely,
it's a big thing. So okay,
right, so I thought that was a good one.
I put the top story because I didn't really think there was a great top story that was kind of an earth-shaking one this week, but it is the International Hospitality or International Hotel Investment Forum, which falls right before ITB in Berlin. And actually, I found it's been quite the quiet week. A lot of the people I normally work with, they're all off in Berlin, or they've been snowed in the Northeast, or digging out, or whatever. But I thought it was interesting with the CEOs. And I mean, this was a top flight CEO panel of these guys, of what they were really going to do, balancing brand growth, guest interactions, a must. I just looked at this and went, there ain't nothing new or original now. It's really kind of a sad thing to say, but I mean, there were a couple little items here and there, but they were kind of talking about, here are the big things they got to do to compete against the Airbnbs and these large, the OTAs, all this stuff. And you just look at it and go, yeah, you're talking about this new brand that you have, IHG with 70 properties, and it's like, what are you doing about the big ones?
Yeah, that's why I skipped it.
Okay.
I mean, to be honest with you,
Well, but isn't it kind of astounding? You've got. I mean,
No.
these aren't some guys. I mean,
Well,
you
what
got
did you
Bilotti.
expect?
It was Bilotti
You
at
expected the
Wyndham.
CEOs of publicly traded organizations to come up and actually talk about real problems they have and real threats they have? Yeah, because that goes over well with the really
Investor.
shaky investor who's like, what? What? This CEO says there's a really eminent problem that's hard to fix? Ah! Sell! I mean, come on. Like, they're publicly traded companies. If it was a private company of like some type of really interesting, guy at the head or gal at the head that like was making waves and changing hospitality, yeah, I'd be disappointed if that person didn't say something interesting. But you had a panel of names that can't say the wrong thing because it could cost people billions of dollars. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, of course, this was an exciting group of people who talked about tea with the Queen. I mean, what do you want?
Yeah. Well, and it was there. I thought there were a couple interesting comments. I mean, Pat Pacious, who's the CEO of Choice, basically said, if you get 30 or 40 brands, you turn yourself into an OTA, which is kind of like, I'm not sure if that was.
I wish I was in the audience because I would have raised my hand and I would have been like, no, if you invest billions of dollars into consumer behavior research and providing high quality digital experiences, you're an OTA. If you have 30 brands, you're
confused.
You're one of you up there. I mean, like having the inventory. Is that the if you build it, they will come mentality? Because that hasn't worked well in a long time.
But to Robert's point, also, they even though the scenario you paint is completely accurate at about, they can't say nothing for nothing that can anyway influence massive amounts of investor concern. They do want to also be something that they can say that can be referred back later or in future tense backwards, saying, yeah, that's what I meant when I mentioned this. I mean, they are going to try to create some parabolic.
So talking about the basic fundamentals of what these companies should care about, yes, that is the safe path, and that's what they did. So they didn't talk about anything new because this has always been the thing that they've always had to keep a balanced focus on. So yes, some years they let it go because they're focused on other things, but these are the fundamentals. If you hired a Tim Peter to come in and help one of these companies, he'd first be looking at a lot of these fundamentals and asking them, have you paid attention to this? Like, I don't, because that's what consultants do. They get you back to the basics. But again, I'm not going to fault them. And listen, it's also our job to point out what we would have liked. And, because we're all paid so highly to do this show.
I write them big checks.
Yeah, because here's the thing. The disappointing part is you have some of the best minds in the industry up on that stage, and they don't get to talk about anything.
Right.
No.
Well, that's why it's funny because we don't see this very often. One of my favorite terms in the world is the Kinsley gaffe, right? It comes from politics. And we don't get this very often. And the Kinsley gaffe is the time where a politician says the thing that they actually think that they're not supposed to say out loud. Those are always super fun. And we don't, a lot of the CEOs, and for very good reason, to your point about it can cost people billions of dollars, are very well schooled in how to avoid that, right? Because you have to. There's not a single person on that stage who doesn't get it, right? They wouldn't be in that role if they didn't get it.
Right.
I was thinking about this. I was listening to the Fuel podcast.
Who puts that on? Actually. We know someone on that, don't we?
Stuart Butler and the fine folks of Fuel Travel. I was listening to the Fuel podcast, which is a must listen. It's, I think, the best podcast in the world for hospitality marketing.
I normally listen to it during the show. Oh, I'm sorry.
But I was listening to one from a couple of weeks ago, and I am going to take them to task a little bit. So I was listening to it today, but it was one from a couple of weeks ago where they were talking.
I'm going to text them real quick and tell them that Tim's calling them.
We're slamming Stuart. Yeah.
No, I'm not slamming him because they're more right than not. But there was one bit of information that they were missing that I think the brands have a very real challenge ahead of them because of this. And they were talking about, I can't remember what they called it, the second wave of mobile or something like that. How you have to be ready for the second. And it was the talk that Stuart gave at HSMAI this year at the Digital Market Conference. But they basically talked about some stats that came from Criteo around how 80% of last-minute bookings are made on mobile, and most of those at OTAs, and how OTAs dominate in terms of the percentage of searches, the percentage of bookings that they get from mobile as opposed to individual hotels. And I think there's a false dichotomy there in saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. It's not great, and obviously you want to get 100% of your fair share as an individual property and as an individual property owner. Also, I'm going to Cleveland next week, right? And let's say that this was a last-minute trip. If I go to an OTA, I'm going to find 50 hotels with availability in Cleveland, which means there are 50 different opportunities for me to say yes to the OTA. And if I go to an individual property website, I'm going to see one property. And that means that there's one possible way for them to say yes to this particular stay for me. And as a result, individual properties will never convert at the same rate as an OTA unless you're getting really narrow in the group of customers you're bringing in. And the only way you do that is be very niche and very targeted and very focused, which you should do. But the idea isn't trying to be yes to everybody. It's to understand there are times where that's a yes that you can't be for somebody. And how do you attract the guests who are appropriate to you? So you're filling 80% of your rooms that you're going to fill with the business that you can get yourself, and let the OTAs bring you the bits that you can't do on your own. Yeah. Right.
And that traveler needs a reason to wind up at your website,
That's
right?
exactly
Or
right.
either proximity, they need to know about maybe the layout of the city, where they're going, what they're doing, why are they may have heard of you, all those different things that you start getting heavily into content marketing and how you
right.
Kind of, cast your net out there and in the right spots where you can start getting known. But without that, if they're kind of agnostic, hey, I'm going to Cleveland for a day, I got to get in and get out for this business meeting. They may just purely be going, here's the address, what's close.
Well,
what's
or they're
close
looking
to the
for
airport because I'm going in.
I need the airport property because I got to be on the 6 a.m. flight. I don't care about any of the rest of the stuff. If you're a city center property who is 45 minutes away from the airport, you're not going to be a good answer for that traveler ever. And it's probably not worth your effort to try to be.
Right.
You should focus on the guests where you can. So that's the only part where I was taking them to task a little bit. I think all of their recommendations made sense. I agree with their approach and their recommendations, just for different reasons. And when we talk about OTAs versus individual properties, that's a thing where so this is where the brands are in big trouble. When we talk about OTAs versus individual properties, the OTA gets to be scale. They get to say yes 50 different ways. They get to say yes 100 different ways. And the individual property gets to be, I'm very focused and very niche on this specific groups of customers. Doesn't matter what they are. It doesn't have to be one, but it could be, I'm the best for this kind of traveler. I'm the best for these kinds of meetings. I'm the best for these types of weddings, etc. And don't worry about 90% of the rest of it. You'll get some carryover, you'll get some spillover, because people who like the thing that you are will come to you for anyway, even when it's not that kind of trip. The brands are sort of stuck in the middle where they can't do either of those especially well. And I would challenge the point that, and I don't remember which CEO said it, but you brought it up a moment ago, Ed. If you have 30 brands, Pat Pacious, if you have 30 brands, you should be trying to get to be an OTA, because scale is the only play at that point.
Right.
So that's really where I think things get interesting.
But this is the thing, is saying that, when you get to 30 brands, you're an OTA. That's offensive to OTAs. I mean, if that's all it takes.
It isn't just size,
Yeah, that's offensive. I mean, because I got to be honest, like Expedia and Booking.com, didn't get to where they are by having 30 brands at all. That's not at all what they did. They answered a consumer need, which wasn't a collection of brands. It was less friction to booking.
Right.
And to that end, I think from a futuristic point of view to this, when AI has more of an integrated aspect to the result-driven stuff that we're being given and fed, the information, like you mentioned, Tim, that it will look at your flight time and know that in historical senses you've booked closer to the airport than you have to the downtown where the event may be driven, which it also has the data on, and it may go over and give you recommendations or tailor the responses specific to the fact that it's more towards you're more interested in. And then now all of a sudden you've really taken brand out of the equation, because brand, to your point, can't be both. It can't be either. Mm-hmm. It has to be everything, but it's not everything in this circumstance because it's not tailored to the individual interest that you have.
Right.
So, yeah, it creates a long-term, if you start throwing AI's potential impact onto this stuff.
Oh, and my gosh, could you imagine if blockchain got involved in this? How bad it would be for the brand?
No buzzwords today, no B word today. There's no B word today.
No, actually, but with that, do you guys know Scott Gillespie? He's a corporate travel kind of corporate travel, really smart guy. He's been working with a lot of groups on just the whole efficiency of business travel, not really getting the cheapest rate or the lowest negotiated rate, but how do you really take care of your employees and make sure that you aren't wiping these guys out with just crazy inventories with, first flight in the morning because it's cheap and this and inefficient stuff of how you can how they can be really, really productive with their time. And I think you start getting intelligent assistance with that where all of a sudden it's making decisions going, here's the best way to do it. Right,
because it's a value. It's a value proposition. I mean, that's the thing. You're talking and there's a whole nother aspect that AI will afford the likes of Google, which is by understanding which is the most valuable to the consumer. They'll also be able to understand if there's opportunity to make more money.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And listen, we all know that there's lots of opportunity to make more money if you really understand what's valuable to the consumer.
You know what? You just made a really neat point.
People have always bought on value. It's such a misconception that people buy price. They don't, right? And that's why the likes of Airbnb are so successful. They figured out that people are loyal to experiences. They're not loyal to brands. And so they've created this whole ecosystem around the experience, which allows them to do what Ed just said, is to capitalize on the revenue opportunity because they're giving the consumer what it is they're looking for. And that's why they grew to where they are today.
Right, because I have to be honest with you, I'm a very value-oriented human being, as we all are, but I'm aware of it. And I know that there are certain things that even if you gave it to me free, I would say no thanks because I see no value in it. So, but see, discounting is is a methodology to make up for the fact that you're deficient in other areas of selling the value proposition. You discount in absence of content. You discount in absence of understanding. You discount in absence of strategy. Like that's the bottom line.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So
and it is. It's
I can't type those things fast enough. You know that. Those were great points, Ed. Those are absolutely excellent points. And Darlene, thank you, because the same thing when you're talking about value that got pointed out. Because to me, right now we talk about relevancy, but not value. And you made a very succinct point of that value is based on nothing to do with relevancy. Relevancy can be everything that you think would be a value, but it's not. Value is value driven, not relevancy.
And the really
value is just an equation, right? That looks at price versus the experience. And that experience may be, hey, I do need to be on airport because I have a 6 a.m. departure tomorrow and I need to spend, less than $100. that's a value equation, right? That has nothing to do with being $79. Right. That has to do with that combination of the two. And that's where the value comes in. And I don't think people always understand that. They think, wow, I'm looking for the cheapest. Well, if everyone was looking for the cheapest hotel, then everyone would be staying in the $59 a night hotel, and people don't. So.
Right. I mean, one of the things I put together years and years ago, and it's out on my blog. I can't post links on this show for some reason any longer because everybody hates it when I do.
I don't mind.
But ever since we went to the Facebook thing, I can't figure out how to post anything without knocking us off. Anyway,
I can't do it either, Tim.
We used to call it the P's and Q's, right? Which is how do people define value, and it is price, proximity, quality, and qualities, right? So, and people will shape that into a trapezoid or into a funky looking square or whatever based on what's important to them for that particular stay.
I like the circles that intersect each other.
Yeah, a Venn diagram. Absolutely. The first time I ever saw it was, we were doing ethnographic research. So we'd gone into, offices and homes of people as they were booking travel. And I'll never forget this because it was Hotel Circle San Diego, right? And this one guest was looking, and he articulated it perfectly. He was looking at a group of hotels, and literally there was an $8 difference in rate between the two properties. And he said, this one is fantastic. The $8 one was higher, right? $8 more, but it's right in the middle of where you want to be. And this other one that was $8 cheaper was in the middle of nowhere. And literally, I don't remember the street off of Hotel Circle, but literally it was a quarter mile down the road. And for this guy, proximity was a really key factor in that specific decision. For $8 less, it didn't matter. He needed to be right there. And so those four things, the price, the proximity, the quality, and the qualities, or the P's and Q's, are what drives that specific decision.
And it also works the other way. Like that exact example can be the other way. That same person who's going there for a specific reason to where it is unattractive to be in the center and it's better to be on the perimeter would feel the opposite way and would pay $8 more. So that's exactly the understanding of what's going on with the person you're interacting with and correctly selling the values that defines whether or not you get the transaction. What OTAs get to do is they have lots of things that are valuable, and they're really good at positioning things that you're most likely to buy based on what it knows about you.
That's right.
And it's because they're really good at data and behavior analysis, and they have enough inventory to offer lots of different value propositions.
By the way,
and the only thing that gets in their way.
Sorry, this is really quick. I'm really bullish on AI, but it's one of the reasons why I think we're much further away from the kinds of intelligent assistants we like to talk about than we like to pretend sometimes. Because not only does it have to know what my preferences are, it has to know what my preferences are for this
situation.
Absolutely.
Specific situation. And that's going to be a lot tougher for it to learn quickly on an individual basis. On a group basis, that's a different thing.
But here's the thing. You say that, but actually, so we're talking about like voice specifically in this. Yeah. One of the benefits voice has is it has the ability to speak back. So, looking to stay somewhere. Okay, Ed, are you traveling with the family this time? Is the wife coming or just the kids? Where a search engine can't do that in a search bar. But this is actually, when you want to talk about what's dangerous in voice, it's when voice can get to the point that it knows enough about you to know what questions to ask you as a follow-up of the question you ask it.
Oh, yeah.
That's when web pages will disappear.
But two things happen. One is knowing about that guest, and then knowing about that broad pool of everyone else and what everyone else liked. And it's like, it's almost like the thing when you're doing focus groups. Not always asking your users exactly what your product should be, because they have a kind of finite look at it. You need to kind of go outside of that, or at least the great companies really do that well. Like, what's the market need, what that sort of thing. So they can the really smart AIs are going to wind up coming in and going, yep, we know what Ed really likes, and this is good, but have you tried this? People have loved it, and are you willing to take a shot at it? And that will be a really interesting thing. And I think that's where Google makes really big money, where they can start revealing that to the advertisers, going, you've got a shot at this, and you should do this, and here's
how much it is to be present. But here's the thing: when we get to that point, that is the beginning of the end of brands as we currently know them, not just in travel. And not just in travel, in everything.
God.
Oh, Ed, your face is going to look like Lauren's in a second. Tim is just teeing up.
I'm clear on
Tim's
this.
coming in Jersey style.
Before Tim makes his case to disagree, let me make my case on why I believe.
Absolutely.
So brand loyalty, it's not really loyalty. Brand familiarity is something a lot of consumers lean on, which is, I've had a good experience with this, therefore I am inclined to go with that brand in the case that I'm met with a decision where that brand is present. I think when you have the ability for technology to consult, okay, let's really talk about what that is. Because the way you find a brand is you end up trying it because something convinced you to try it for the first time, right? And that came through give and take. It's input and output, and then change. When we get to the point that I'm talking about, where AI will be able to say, oh, okay, Ed, you're ready to plan a trip. Who's coming with you? Okay, and it can take all of the things it knows about my son and my daughter and my wife that it's learned over time, or straight Q&A sessions. Because here's the thing, if you're looking to be enriched and have your life enriched, you'll do a Q&A session with something. It will, you won't, if the AI says, hey, in San Francisco, based on everything you love, the Hotel Zephyr is the perfect fit for this specific trip for you and the family, you're not going to turn around and say, is that a Marriott? Oh, is there a Marriott that's somewhat close? Because I don't want to try the perfect fit that you used everything you know about me to tell me was a perfect fit. Disagree.
So, I think the AI, if it knew that you were that brand, if it knew that you were that brand loyal though to Marriott, it should already know that and go, you know what? You would generally pick the Marriott, but have you thought about the Zephyr? Because here's the thing,
and this is where I'm saying
it may be better, it may be so. Here's an alternative, right?
Because you only have to be right as an AI once with someone super brand loyal, and then they're going to be like, oh man, that hotel was awesome, or those sneakers that weren't Nikes were amazing, and I would never have thought of trying them if you didn't realize that those sneakers were great for people with flat feet.
Right. And here's the thing. I got to jump in really quick because in 2 minutes I'm receiving a call and I will have to drop off.
Oh, man. You only have 2 minutes to disagree with me?
Tim, but just have the call here. We'll all help you.
Yeah, we'll help you with it. It's just fine.
With attorneys, I would be more than happy to, but they might disagree. They might have an issue with this being public. So here's the thing. I actually think we agree more than we disagree after saying how much I disagreed a second ago. Well, because I think we need to be very careful about how we define our terms. A strong brand that has a strong value proposition, what Robert just said, I completely agree with. I'm not going to switch from Diet Coke to something that isn't, to Diet Pepsi just because it was an interesting recommendation one time. I have strong affinity and strong loyalty for that brand.
Is that your call?
That's my call.
All right.
Everybody, great talking to you.
Bye.
Have a great day. Bye now.
So for those who want to know,
so, but talking to Tim's point, because I do agree with Tim's point that it will be difficult, but I think it will be easier with the technology able to do back and forth with you. Because listen, marketing today is you get one shot at someone's attention. If you don't nail it, you lost to preference, right?
And it's one way.
It's one way, right? Where AI and voice represents the opportunity to have what all people want, which is a discussion.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's also the discovery value too. There is an inherent where you didn't consider something, but because of a trusted, and you said AI only has to be one. AI has to only be right once for you to start going down this path. Same reason why you get somebody off of a brand loyalty to independent hotels. You just have to have them try it once and realize all the things that kept them from trying independent hotels aren't as what they thought they were. They had a good experience, so now they're opening their portfolio of ideas of, I like the brand, but I don't mind the variances.
And I got to tell you, Gen Z, or whatever they're permanently going to be named, the ones who are now 22 years old, if that doesn't frighten you, they are the ones who are going to be the least loyal because they're the ones who have had unlimited access to knowledge and content their entire life. They do not know what it is to be restricted from just having everything at their fingertips. Those are the ones that are going to push for this back and forth because those are the ones that are hungry for discovery. And as they age into being serious players in the economy, and it's not far from now, they're going to be challenging for the workforce to adjust because they're going to be very different than millennials. They're also going to be, as a consumer, probably one of the toughest to nail from the current form of marketing that exists, which is non-conversational. It's one way, and it's very transactional driven. Current
and the brands are going to have to look at loyalty in a different way because
there is no loyalty. Well, and let's face it,
it's rewards.
Loyalty, it's rewards. I was talking to someone and I said,
really conditioning is what it is.
A really good rewards program should be based off the same fundamentals on how you would train a puppy. When someone does something,
it's operant conditioning.
Really
That's all you're doing. It's operant conditioning.
Exactly.
Give them a reward. When someone does something you kind of like, give them a little bit of a reward. When someone does something you dislike, no reward.
Yeah, reward, loyalty. The fact is that they're going to have to engage those people to stay with them time and time again using an entirely different approach because what boomers and Xers were attracted to has changed for those people, right? So they just have to, unassemble their current thinking about it, as they probably are, and looking at it from an entirely different perspective. And how are all those new apps that I learned of one recently in Chicago. It's a transportation app, and instead of taking the train to work, all of the very young millennials group together and they all share a car to get to work because it's cheaper, it's more efficient, and it's
a car in Chicago could take a lot longer depending on which way you're going.
Yeah.
Yes, but hey, listen, less chances that you're going to get shot.
Oh, that's a pleasant thought. Thank you.
Yeah. But the whole notion is, and this company is not doing a ton of marketing. It's word of mouth, and it's these people talking to other people.
Word of mouth marketing doesn't work. Oh wait, yeah, it does. It does. Sorry, it does.
Yeah. So brands are going to have to totally re-engineer.
Have you guys? So I've been preparing a presentation. I'm presenting at Myrtle Beach next week, and part of this presentation is I had to do kind of this big what happened in 2017 in marketing. I was like, crap.
Is your whiteboard behind you a part of that presentation? Because I think it's going to be slightly confusing.
No, that's something else. I found a really interesting statistic, though, that actually speaks to a nuance that a lot of people don't understand enough of, especially in our industry, which is the importance of quality design. So here's an interesting statistic that I found on ComScore through a survey that surveyed people 18 and up about apps that they use on their devices. So this was a question about how likely are you to remove an app purely because you do not like how it looks on your home screen. That sounds almost ridiculous, right? But people age 18 to 34, 21% of them said that they have removed an app purely because it was ugly on their home screen.
Wow.
Almost a quarter, yeah.
And 2% of age 35 to 54 answered that they did that. 3% of people 55 plus did that. So let's look at what's different. Well, the people who are 18 to 34, they came of age in some of the best design technology, like UIs and everything, where the rest kind of remember phone books and the really crappy way you had to do things, like having only a phone and a typewriter on your desk. I can't imagine how anyone got work done on that. But you have to think about this. Design now is so important to your business and your brand that literally it will make someone not even give you a chance purely on the very first impression.
Aesthetics, yeah.
Which is the aesthetic of your logo, of your app. And that blew my mind. I mean, I've always kind of felt like that's the challenge, like that a lot of hotels have, is their design is horrible. I mean, more often than not, and it's the one thing I will say I don't understand about Booking.com, because Booking.com just slays it. But I actually think that their design is horrible.
It's not that great.
It's horrible, but I think people are forgiving it for value. I mean, it's the only thing I can think of.
Same with TripAdvisor. That awful user interface that they spent time and fortune on and has killed their share price by. They did everything right, and from a design perspective, they cleaned it up. It doesn't work as well. Right? It's just that old messy thing allowed people to kind of go through and digging into a rubble heap to go.
What's worse than that is they're homogenous. And I don't think any of the OTA property experiences cut through the clutter. In a way that the people that Ed's talking about would appreciate.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I don't think any of them do an excellent job at it, but I think they all do a better job than the average hotel experience that you're served, brand or not. I don't think they're going to win medals for their design, but when compared to the people they're trying to win the consumer attention against, they're leaps and bounds better.
Well, I think you hit on a chord, though, too, and that is, based on the age categorizations you sliced up, there is this relationship of persona to what you're associated with, and I think in some ways people, because they are more self-branding and into how they see themselves, and so everything they do has some sort of touch to that now. And your phone, as for often as it's used, and we all know how connected to you it is. It never leaves more than 3 feet, 98% of the time or some ridiculous number, is that whole persona where, I mean, think about if you were to ask those same questions about the case that people use. If we did a study on what case you have your phone in, does it hold little extra credit cards? Is it a little sticky on there? Is it a battery? Is it a slim line? Do you even put a case on it? There's a whole discussion of people that do phones au naturel, so all of these things have interpretations of people when you see people, because we stereotype and we view people. I don't want to lose that subject.
Let's continue, because this actually ties into someone who I actually got to see speak last week that I'm now a fanboy of. Oh. So I was at the Navis Leaders Conference last week. First of all, I'm going to say, of company-based conferences, they had the best content I've ever seen, tied throughout all speakers, really strong. Like, they put a ton of work into this, to where, listen, normally I'll pop in, get the gist of someone, and if they're not like killing me with like awesome stuff, I'm out. So normally most conferences, I'm 2 to 3 minutes in each speaking session, with maybe 1 or 2 that I sit all the way through. I was mad that I missed certain ones because they were scheduled at the same time as other ones. But they did this this opener on the last day, which is a new board member of theirs, which is StOnge, who used to be the chief marketing officer of Marketo.
Mm.
And he did this presentation that, holy smokes, if you ever can get a chance to listen to StOnge talk and you want to understand what it takes to win today, you need to hear him speak about engagement marketing. Because he is, first of all, really good at simplifying it, because engagement marketing is quite complex and, you know, pretty hard to pull off. But he's got it simplified down to like 5 key items. I could have listened to him speak for another 2 hours. It was so good. And it was around this idea that you hear me talk about sometimes, but it's something I truly believe in, which is marketing isn't being present to win anymore, because everyone's present to win. Everyone's screaming. Marketing is about building relationships, and relationships take nurture, take effort. So one really cool thing he gave out was like his look at email and how you should email a person. And he used his 4-1-1 rule. 4 of your emails should be pure gives, pure just trying to build quality in your life. The next one should be a nudge towards a transaction, and then the next one should be a straight up ask, like, yes, that is much better. You know, so Sanjay Dolakia is his name. And if you get a chance to hear him speak, it was awesome. His points about engagement marketing and what's expected is fantastic. Even channel strategy, he went into channel strategy on how to look at channels versus devices. Like, he warned, he's like, guys, mobile, you shouldn't look at mobile. There are channels inside of mobile. Within, you know, a thumb move, there's 5 channels on mobile. Just really enjoyed hearing him talk, and had some great insights. And I think it lends into this idea of design, because design isn't just about look and feel. It's also about process and engagement. You know, it's also one of the reasons why I think a lot of companies are failing in channels. So you're hearing a lot of hubbub about, you know, conversion rates coming out of Instagram lately. Well, firstly, y'all jumped into Instagram. Like, you were all like, oh, there's a new train I can hitch onto. I'm Instagramming. But you didn't take any time to think about what's the expected experience on someone who's on Instagram. It's different than Facebook. Mm-hmm. It's different than Snapchat. Not as much anymore. You know, but I think it's this whole idea of engagement marketing, like, you know, and so one of the things I kind of, you know, because I don't want to straight steal from this guy's awesome presentation, so I had to create like my own thought processes. And my key takeaway that I simplified it into is, you cannot market on social channels the same way you market on search engine. Because search engine, someone who's on a search engine, they're in active discovery mode. They are looking for
an answer. They want an answer.
Right. Whereas in social, and different social, it's like varying degree of this, they're in passive discovery mode.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, did you catch my eye? Great. You have a couple seconds to make me want to spend a couple more seconds, And then you got to, at some point, convince me that I'm a consumer of yours. Like, it's a different process than search engine. Mm-hmm. I'm your answer is your positioning on search engine, where, you know, it's a completely different path on social.
Yeah. Did you see where Snapchat was offering free funding for advertisement with them if you validate that you are currently advertising with Instagram?
Mm-hmm.
which I thought
but
was
here's their
interesting.
problem. But here's their problem. Like, sure, there are certain players and certain companies that get it that will do really well on Snapchat. But then there's everyone else.
Right,
like even the ones who've adjusted to figure out Facebook, because Facebook's not as hard to figure out as some of the others. Like you can't do your Facebook approach to marketing inside of Snapchat. It won't work. There's different expectations on what the engagement is. So I that was my takeaway, like was how to depict what he spent an hour talking about into something really easy to wrap your head around, which is don't market on social like you do on search engine. Here's why.
Right.
I wonder, I think what you've just said, smart insights, right? But if we boil it down, and I always just like to go, offline for comparison. So it's no different. People who are watching TV have different expectations than people who are listening to the radio. You wouldn't communicate with them the same way on those two different devices. The same way you're not.
Or a magazine. Yeah, a magazine versus a newspaper.
Exactly. Right.
But yet inside of digital, that kind of seems to have been lost.
I know, and I don't get it, right?
Like everything's a nail because I got a digital hammer. I'm Mario.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's no different, and ignoring your audience is like Ford trying to sell a convertible on, I don't know, the Discovery Channel or something, right? Where it's just a bad fit. So I think we just have to go back to basics and go, what is it that I'm trying to achieve? Where are those people? And how, when they're on that channel, how do they want to be talked with?
Right.
And if we just go back to that, it isn't that hard.
No.
I
do want to rewind.
I mean, like what's really funny about it is that's actually kind of always held true, that all the fundamentals of marketing apply to social. Don't spam a list. Any list gotten through ill means will be low quality in engagement. Like these are all marketing fundamentals. If you go buy a list of names from someone, or if you just grab a phone book and like hit the phone book, it's low quality. And yet people run schemes all the time to try to build their Facebook following and their Instagram following, and it's schemes. So like you're going to end up with garbage on the other end of it. But that's always been the case. That's been the case in any form of marketing. If you got the list through a scheme, it's low quality.
Right. Well, but again, it all falls back to what are their objectives as an organization, right? What do they do? And all of that strategy that goes behind it, and the metrics that they're measuring it by. So if you've got crappy metrics like Facebook followers or Twitter followers, you can gin up those numbers, but it doesn't have anything to do with sales or engagement or brand perception or anything like that. It's crazy. Just to get back to Ty very quickly, because we kind of got this through brands and things like this, I'm going to try to segue onto something else because I have to leave in 12 minutes. But I know. I got to go talk to a damn client, So
what the hell's this client stuff getting in the way here? Whoa.
I know.
Rule of Fight Club is there is no clients in Fight Club.
These guys are really big and important, though. But anyway, the one thing I want to close out on the CEOs, what I thought the classic line was certainly from Hilton, and Nasetta's saying, I think it's appropriate to lock owners into 25-year contracts. This is his solution. A longer contract with owners helps solidify the relationship. A longer-term agreement allows more perspective, and Hilton puts in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Shorter terms lead to less alignment and leads to experiences that are not as good. And it's like, with the dynamicism of this
industry. Did they say that with a straight face? Did he actually say that with a straight face?
I think so.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
Oh, good gosh.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it now. I think more people would benefit from 10-year contracts with Flip2 because they would be more aligned with our long-term vision.
And a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Wait, no, wait.
Tears.
We'd also be less distracted driving incremental value while we're chasing the big vision.
Right.
But you got to come along for the ride. So we're,
for 25 years.
Yeah, that doesn't fly.
So what I thought was interesting, though, was an article that was the female hotelier makes activism part of her company's mission. And this is Eaton Hotels and Catherine Lowe. And yesterday being the International Day of Women, and thank you, Darlene, for coming on, because otherwise I was going to talk about this being completely non-represented. So speaking for all, the representative of all women everywhere globally, you can speak for percent. But I thought it was very interesting. This woman is 21 years old, and now you go, wait, how does a 21-year-old become the leader of a hotel group? Well, her father founded Langham. Okay,
well, that speeds things up. That
helps.
So,
but
all right,
I studied anthropology at Yale, and the things that they're doing with these are, she has a vision for this. It's going to be, it's more activism and what this brand represents. And I think those sorts of brands, yes, those will matter, and where people have a true connection, where they feel what that brand represents in terms of the emotional connection, what it stands for, either politically or socially or whatever. Those are the things that are really going to matter, which are going to be very hard for a group like a Marriott or Hilton, who have 30 or 40 brands, or just these massive scale folks to produce.
So what they're really doing is they're hyper focusing on a specific consumer, and they've realized that there's enough of a consumer to fill the demand of their brand. Here's what I'm going to be interested in is when they need to change. Because it's fine if you're going to stay private and stay a private company. Cool. You can do that. And yes, you'll have to accept that you're not going to get certain types of employees, because choosing this route also means you'll never get someone like me, because I got to be honest with you. I don't care. And I don't want to hear, I hate Chick-fil-A for two reasons. One, they're closed on Sunday, and that annoys me. Two, they actively are against people who are gay.
Right.
And I have a problem with that, not because I care. I don't have a dog in the show. I care that they made a stupid business decision to say that they're actively against people who are gay. You shouldn't care. You're a business, okay? Right. So if you're private, fine. Do that wacky stuff. You're going to end up on the news, whichever side of the issue you're on. You're either going to be on Fox or CNN. One of them is going to be smashing you. But the problem this person is creating for this brand is they are capping the future. They will not be able to be in a successful IPO situation, because they will not be able to scale to a size while keeping the activist nature. It's a dream of a 21-year-old who has not been affected by the fact of, know what? I can work very closely with someone that I completely fundamentally disagree with many things on, because I'm an adult and I understand that different perspectives bring different value to an organization. And that hyper focus to a single value is going to create a thin organization. So it's a private company, do it, but as soon as you go public, you're running a disservice.
And
to your
Chick-fil-A won't. And Chick-fil-A, Truett Cathy, who's the guy who founded it, and the guy who's the just blatantly complete homophobe sort of thing.
Yep.
He's the guy who said that. And again, the Christian values, or that's why they, and part of it, I kind of look at and go, well, he's not open on Sundays, and his beliefs are and that really resonates to a large group of people going, what? He stands by this, and he's leaving a lot of money on the table.
I was only slightly annoyed by that. What made me hate them was the open.
Absolutely.
Grid. And actually, what made me hate them more was still knowing that, I know many gay people who love Chick-fil-A, and I'm like, how?
Absolutely, I know. Because
this company openly hates you and isn't shy about openly hating you, and
I think the founder does. right? The founder does that. I don't think the general Chick-fil-A employee population is necessarily indoctrinated.
Listen,
to go.
When the company is behind it, so there's a difference between founder beliefs but then corporate support of founder beliefs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
That's when it's like, listen, I don't care if people believe with the things I say, but Flip2 doesn't also support everything I say because it's a business.
Right.
It's here to serve a purpose, create jobs, like it's a part of an economy. Businesses do activist-based stuff, and I've watched it in startups. I watch startups that start off and say, we're only going to hire people who are this way. Well, you're actually being ageist because people who have families and are in a different stage of life can't be this way. So, you're just you're like, it's not thoughtful doing that.
Oh no, and the diversity. There was actually a great podcast. I love the Recode Decode with Kara Swisher, but she had a great podcast this week she was speaking with Sheryl Sandberg from Facebook at the Lesbians in Tech conference, right? So it was a really, really interesting conversation about how you work through all this. And I mean, the agreement was that yes, you need diverse, really diverse people make you a much better organization and help you understand, your customers and the world,
and
better.
To put a sharper point to it, though, I think to define something you're saying, Ed, is I completely agree with you that if you create hard stands against things, you are capping your business potential. 2, by dragging your business into a perspective like that, you're also defining the business as to what people will do engage with. But to another point to it, if you would change that to a little bit, what you increase as inclusiveness, like we are going to hire physically challenged people, we're going to hire a special needs. If you try to show an overt inclusion effort, where you're saying we're not excluding everybody else, but we also recognize that there's an underservice to other potential people, and you agree them as an inclusion. To that end, I would actually raise the question, can that advocacy create that brand loyalty because of your inclusion value?
But if it's real inclusion value, because I got to be honest with you. So like, if you go look at how diverse of an employee base Easy Yield had, you would think we tried. Instead, let me tell you how we hired. Who is the best fit that would be the best for the company? And we are in a diverse area. We're in Orlando. It's a very diverse population here. And we didn't try. It just happened because we didn't see those things. We didn't intentionally do things. And so like, I just become super skeptical of businesses who lead with things like this.
Not to lead. I'm not saying that. But,
no.
But by the same token, you pointing it out is also doing what I'm saying by saying, like, look, we had this opportunity. We created our own diversity by keeping a guideline of saying we only want the best in our position.
And part of it is like, it's the culture comes from the top, right? And I've always looked at it as like, honestly, I don't care about a lot of things about people. I care how meaningful are they to my life or whatever I'm trying to accomplish, right? And so I put a lot of the other stuff aside, and I do that with the people around me. Like if you look at my friends are completely diverse, like completely, because I don't care about a lot of the crap that people get tied up in. Because if you do that, you're robbing yourself. You're robbing yourself.
Are Robert and I on the spectrum? Are Robert and I on that wide spectrum? Like there's the
you guys are
definitely and Robert is on the other spectrum.
You guys are bookends.
Ed has friends who've been hit by lightnings.
but to that end, like
Actually,
I'm thinking like
a perfect example. One of my favorite people in my Facebook network is crazy. He is crazy. He's in our industry, and anytime I post anything that even comes close to touching a political issue, it's paragraphs. But I actually learn a lot. Like I don't believe it all, but I learn little nuggets, and I enjoy it.
Picture a hotel ownership group that says for everybody that stays with us, we're building a tent somewhere, or we're building something somewhere.
I like it.
Right. Now, see, that's an inclusion aspect. That's not we're against a certain genre of people or anything. That's like saying we're trying to make a positive effect as a business. We're recognizing there's an opportunity that we can help with. that we're taking away from our profitability or our success of revenue generation and overbloated costs or whatever, and we're trying to make a shared contribution. Can that possibly be the future of loyalty value?
The buy one, give one thing? I think that's a cool way to do it. Put shoes on kids. I think someone does it with glasses now, which is that's awesome.
Yeah,
this particular one though is they're trying to launch a hotel brand that basically has things like confronting climate change and inequality. Right, these are part of their things. And they kind of made the comment that in addition to making a good cocktail, but I thought what was really interesting on how they described this business, not once did they talk about thread count on sheets or square footage of rooms or all of that. It's like, this is what this brand, represents. And here's what we are about. And I think they are being more on the inclusionary, and yes, you can call that, it's liberal, it's more globalist or whatever, which could be very anti.
I don't call it activist. And so that's the thing. I think it's BS. I think it's honestly BS. I think they're looking at it's a ploy to make it seem like they're doing this stuff to suck in the lemmings who fall for that crap.
I think you're too old and cynical, Ed.
No, you know what it is? I'm the generation who sees through BS, okay? And that's BS. I like the companies that quietly do those things. That quietly are improving the world and the lives of their employees. And every now and then it comes out when it's appropriate for it to come out. But to lead with, let's not talk about our product.
Now I'm with you on that. From a marketing point of view, I agree with you. From a social point of view, I think it should be part of your lead conversation. Marketing, I don't think you should put on your placard all the time, we support free shoes for homeless people. I think, however, in your social dialogue of creating culture and identity to yourself, that you should talk about those things that you're doing because they are the defining differences. And let's be fair, business is business. The business is doing it, yes, to be noble and good, but it's also to do business. And if you can define yourself differently than the other competitor across the street with the other vanilla name that they have and identify something different about yourself, there's a value proposition to that.
Yep.
There's
and as long as it's inclusion based and you have corporate policy that you will never be activist on something that's at all excluding people.
Right.
Then I'm a little bit okay.
This article, these guys aren't doing it. I think
we warmed Ed's cold heart. We got him as far as to say he's okay with it. We're good. This is good. We've reached a mark here.
Well, I still think, but here's the reason I'm offended by this specific one. It's a load of crap. It's
an idealistic 21-year-old that is making headlines by saying that.
And as soon as that person hits some type of difficulty with the business or dire straits with the business, half that crap goes out the door.
It just
I don't know. We were talking about Generation Z before. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, Robert, you said you were on the tight timeline, but so before you leave,
I am.
People want to know
I need to go.
Where to find you, all that kind of good stuff.
Robert K. Cole on social media or rockcheetah.com.
Excellent. And I have two things I want to rewind back to, but Robert, thank you very, very, very much for your time.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks for
keeping
us on point.
That's right. Yes. Thank you so much for that. I want to rewind back to one thing that Darlene had mentioned, and that was there is an app that actually got featured in ABC News that is considered to be the mass transit Uber idea app, which is people are aggregating their vans or actually getting larger scale transportation and creating their own, quote, bus routes that people can prescribe to, and with the app call them over so that they don't have to go to a bus stop necessarily. They can go to whatever location has been designated on that route and join the mass transit Uber, as it were. And I think it started in DC, which brings me up to another question, which was I was over and talked to some restaurant owners in DC that said that the suburb restaurants are improving. They call it the Uber effect, because taxis never really went out to their suburb areas, and Uber does. So they're getting a whole new wave and level of business because Uber is giving them availability of people inner city and other areas to their restaurants that they never had before.
Yeah, because listen, I live slightly outside of the downtown Orlando corridor. And so, you know what? When we go out, we wouldn't drink much because we couldn't get a taxi. We couldn't do that. We never went out and did that stuff. And when ride sharing came to town, you can get an Uber or a Lyft to my house inside of 10 minutes, which that changes things. Okay, let's go do something we wouldn't normally do because, the transportation is frictionless. I mean, that is some of the really good stuff that came about from Uber's evil empire, is that they did, they changed a lot of consumer dynamics, like a lot of consumer dynamics. Uber Eats, believe it or not, now that Dara's the head of Uber, I'll actually give Uber my money again. I love Uber Eats. I think it's amazing. I actually order Uber Eats inside hotel rooms when I don't like their room service menu, or if their room service doesn't pick up. I just order Uber Eats.
Which is a crazy missed opportunity for hotels.
Huge missed opportunity.
But and before I go, the only thing, because I now have actually one more minute because I was padding 5 minutes. But are you guys familiar with BlaBlaCar in Europe? BlaBlaCar is, I think, it's great concept. Basically, it's for intercity transit. So it's like the ride board at college, right? If you're in Paris and you're going to Nice, you go, but they have some very strict rules that the drivers can't profit from driving the car. So it figures out that you're driving a Peugeot whatever, and you have so many people, and it knows the gas mileage, it knows the expense, and it goes, yeah, these people are all going to pay you such and such, and you go, and it's shared. And so it's very low cost. It doesn't have things like surge pricing and stuff like that. And they haven't come to the U.S. yet, but boy, they are doing millions of rides across Europe.
It's real sharing economy.
Really great. That is a true sharing economy.
Sharing economy, right? Yeah. Which is, I'm doing something. I'm open to being less wasteful by letting someone else who's looking to do the same thing
defray your costs
and pay their costs, like pay their cut. That's true sharing economy. Like Airbnb and Uber, and they're not. Right. But like BlaBlaCar, that's true sharing economy.
Couch surfing. Yeah.
That's exactly. That's true sharing economy. Yeah, and I like those businesses because I like the sharing economy. Uber, Lyft, that's the gig economy.
Right. Now the question now is, Robert, when you leave, are you going to be that person that at a cocktail party that because you get up and get your coat, everybody's like, figure that's the time to duck and dodge? And, so if you leave, well, all of a sudden we'll be like, oh my gosh, well, it's that time.
You guys have a bunch of news stories to talk about, and you don't even have to have my input dragging. You can talk about Radisson's 8 hotel brands explained. You can talk about Google giving up on Zagat, which I think
No. You have to bring Ramada back next week because you are the brand recap. I still to this day remember the show where we went through and tried to guess the brand when you read the description and had a blast. None of us got any of them right. We could not.
Well, and he was inside one family with that too.
Right.
That was
just one brand. It wasn't anything else.
And I told you the brand family as well.
Yep.
So,
and we still couldn't guess it.
Nope. So
we got to bring Ramada back. You got to bring Ramada back.
Well, it's Radisson, so that you're already talking about brand problem.
Oh no, and that is Radisson.
See, it begins with an R. I don't even know which one we're talking about.
Well, no, Carlson changed their name to Radisson, so that's one of the brands. They've got 8 of them. So go study up on Corvus or whatever. Something. Yeah.
Some of them, like I didn't even realize that the Radisson collection existed. I mean, and that's okay because it seems newer. There's only 14 hotels, but that's supposed to be like their luxury upper scale. I knew Radisson Blue existed, and I thought that was actually
Radisson
a nice
Red.
Move. Radisson
Red.
Yep.
Which is a little shakier. Yeah.
Park Plaza.
That's what came out of Park Inns when they acquired Park Inns.
No, I know,
right?
But
that was
Park Plaza, like they have it labeled as upscale, and I kind of have not had that experience with Park Plaza.
Mm-hmm. Got to go look at the STR. So maybe they went with that, the STR ranking.
Okay. Because like they're saying it's like IHG's Crown Plaza, like today's Crown Plaza or Crown Plaza when it was kind of a hot mess. Because today's Crown Plaza has really tightened up brand standards, and I haven't. To be fair, I haven't stayed in a Park Plaza in a couple years, so maybe they cleaned it up. But my previous recollection of Park Plaza was not Crown Plaza level.
It was an upscale, Park Inn.
Go ahead. Sort of Are you leaving too?
I gotta go.
Darlene, you taking off?
All right.
See, Robert, you are the cocktail party pooper. You are the cocktail party pooper.
I gotta leave. Ed's there for the duration. Talk to you later.
All right. Darlene, if people want to find you, where do they find you?
Darlene Rondeau, LinkedIn.
All right. Darlene, thank you so much for hopping on. Sincerely appreciate it. Hope to see you next week as well. All right. Bye now. Here we are, Mr. Ed.
And now it's going to go weird.
It's going to go south.
And I'm kind of fired up today. Like
you are. You know what? But I got to tell you something, too. I wrote down some great comments. I mean, this is one of those shows that I think there's some great points to it. When Tim hops on, for me, I enjoy when he pops up every once in a while. Like I said, I was very impressed with me. I had a single response to what Marriott was doing.
Yep.
And he, once again, shows that he steps back,
he's just
slices it out. Damn,
that's why he's top. That's why he's top 25, man.
That's it. That's why he does top 25, because he slices it up and then says this is better than that as an option. It's just that good. But no, I thought we made some really. There were some really good points, and I, as always, I get a couple of good ideas.
The ratio of good to crap, I will agree, was different than our normal show.
See, we tipped the other way. We went on to the good side and less of the crap side. Yeah. So the idea of the brand and stuff, and I enjoyed our conversation with it, but I actually think there's some legs to it that. As we start molding this, I mean, we talk about Ramada, Radisson, and so forth. I can't tell you that. Park Plaza, I couldn't tell you anything about it differently than any other hotel. Once there, I could probably point out what I think is different, but I couldn't if you just asked me about it, because I haven't, if I ever remember staying at one, and two, would have no recollection of its variances anyway. But that's the homogeny that all consumers have right now. That it's not a brand, it's not a brand loyalty, it's not a brand identity, it's a location and rate and amenities that are sustainable to what they're interested in.
The GDS chain code.
Yeah, the GDS chain code. So to that end, it's like, okay, so what can create these identifiers? Now, independent hotels have a leg up because they have uniqueness to their identity. Mm-hmm. And because of that, it gives the chance that you can go over and say unique things about your property, but then you have the reverse of it, which is you can't have that sustainable interest because it's not going to occupy app space on your phone. It's not going to have residual return value because they would have to come back to the only one location or the destination in particular. So you don't have that ability to cross sell and have multiple units unless you aggregate some sort of soft branding, which we know how that gets confused in any other brand.
See, you know what I'd like? I'd like someone. I don't know, maybe Best Western can do this because they're kind of forward thinking. I'd like a brand to just come out and say what it is. Like, I would love to have like a Radisson fancy towels. Like, instead of these weird names and you got to figure out where it is in the chain of desire, it's like Radisson, take your wife here on anniversary or your significant and then there's Radisson, you're here to sleep.
Uh-huh.
Right. And so you have brand fundamentals. So all of our hotels are going to be clean, safe, friendly, right? Core. That's across no matter how much you spend.
This is the part where you put in color TV and heated.
Then there's Radisson, impress your parents on a trip. And then there's, Radisson, you've got a 3-year-old with you. Sorry about that. That would be fun. It would be honest. I think it would speak to the younger generation who are sensitive to BS. Because I'm super sensitive to BS, and people younger than me are even more sensitive to BS. Like, it would be fun. I'd like it.
And maybe that will be a bit of the trend that goes towards where you get into this more candid or candor, a specific interest level branding to it. But again, going back to the,
it's why I liked, it's why I liked a Loft, because they were like cheap chic.
Yeah,
it's cool.
And again, I think it goes back to, and I think you made the statement. Let's see if I can read it out right. That when compared to operant conditioning, had the competition. It was brand loyalty more just like operant conditioning, because really it's risk reward. Okay, you represent this much value to me, so I'm willing to give you this much token value, in the hopes that it incentivizes you to become more valuable to me, so that I go over and redeem you for another token value of acknowledgement. And I think to what you just said about the marketing of individual hotels, even branded or not, if you can create the value proposition of the experience more than you can about what you're trying to feature as to the brand combination of name versus synonymous catchy phrase or something like that, then you're really at that point addressing the interest at the time of the decision purchase, which we don't know whether it's business, personal, 3-year-old traveling or not, that will be the reason for the conversion. I mean, like, hey, you said if I travel with a 3-year-old, go to the hotel.
Better. Hold on, I got it even better. Like, you're just a brand name with a number assignment, and the number assignment has like a definition to it, and you don't buy in to be that number assignment. It's based on your quality. So I want to be a Marriott 4 because that's like a Ritz-Carlton versus a Marriott 1, which is, I don't know, whatever their lowest end brand is. And you can move annually based on like how you're rated as an overall organization. That would be amazing. That would be a brand I'd become loyal to, because it would be like, oh man, for this trip I need a Marriott 4. Because I like this is my getaway. But you know what? It's a business trip. I want a Marriott 2.
Well, you know what? In a strange ways, if there was a way to interpret, the redemption, because obviously it exists in the loyalty programs already. You have redemption values assigned to the hotel type, so that you have to spend extra points to be at certain redemption hotels compared to others. So the infrastructure is kind of already there. But again, going back to the advocacy aspect of this, and I think to your point, it's not truly the term advocacy, okay, or activist, as it is identifying yourself in a way that people appreciate wanting to do business with you.
Yep.
Where if, again, not as a marketing message, hey, we're the XYZ hotel because we give free shoes, but to say, hey, we're the XYZ hotel that have these locations and this, but in your engagement with them, you discover, and the reason why you like to keep engaged with them is that they do things like make tents for people that don't have homes, or shoes for people that don't have them, or something, or whatever it is, their methodology of success that they want to show that they're supporting community. Because I think to your generation, was it Z? Is that the way they were talking about 21?
Yeah, the ones coming up that are 22 now. So this girl's a Gen Z.
Okay, is that they're going to identify, because just like you talked about with apps, taking them off because they don't make you look good when you share your phone to somebody, or the aesthetics don't match your self persona.
Oh yes, travel it's well known that millennials care the most about their travel being an accessory to their life. And actually, there a good percentage of each. Even baby boomers feel this way. There's a large swath of baby boomers that say that where they travel says something about who they are.
Right. And what they talk about in their travel experience. Oh, we stayed at such and such. Now, some are like, we stayed in a pup tent because we're, local, green, no carbon footprint people, or other people like, well, I stayed at the super happy, luxury, whatever it was. That's part of the story that they tell. I wish Darlene was back with us, because she would definitely go up on this one. I mean, talk about storytelling and content generation. She's one of the queens of it. Yeah. So it is about persona, the story that you tell. And I think if, in fact, you get to say, and we stayed at the XYZ hotel, they give free shoes away, that every time you buy a room that they give shoes to people in such and such places and so on. It becomes a part of the story process, which creates the loyalty that even if you spent extra to be there, you get to tell that part of your stories. So,
yep.
Yeah. I think, in that sense, pretty cool stuff.
I think everyone should remember it's always conditional loyalty.
Yes.
I'm loyal to you as long as you fit into my needs.
Yes. And personas change. Oh, right. Young people don't use Facebook. Yeah, they do eventually, because they eventually want to reconnect people that maybe at the time are, but now they are. And so now you follow the pattern of what platform people engage with. And again, some point that you made that I thought was excellent in the show was tailor your messaging to the platform of using. And it seems to be a lost art in digital, where digital is all screaming all the time. And it's like, no. Magazines, you had a certain space and a message capability. And
well, you know what it was? It's people got away with the crappy marketing behavior on these social channels because they were just growing at such a clip for so many years that just the growth alone, you got away with this stuff and it didn't burn you. But we're hitting a maturity point with a lot of these networks. And look at Facebook. So in this update I'm giving next week, I have a funny picture of Mark Zuckerberg, and and I'm calling out that the schemes and methods that you used to reach audiences in a less than savory way, it doesn't work anymore. But because of that, the baby got thrown out with the bathwater. Organic reach is gone on Facebook because Zuck got your number,
right?
You know, and so gaming systems and ill-gotten gains in branding and marketing, like it's all short-term strategy. And listen, I talk to hotels all the time that they don't even have to explain to me what they did. I can tell by the way they're talking about their consumer engagement cycles that they are addicted to the schemes. They're just addicted to the schemes. But here's the thing. Schemes get more expensive and less effective because they're not good. And so there's people actively working against the schemes. Instead, play, you know, you got to try things, and there's nothing wrong with accidentally being schemy because you're trying something that's completely new and you didn't know what the rules of engagement were. Like, so I'm not sitting here saying like don't do anything like that. But I'm saying like take some time and understand you will get so much more value out of the things you do. And a lot of it is long-term value. You can build so much long-term value by just consistently trying to approach things with understanding of your audience and understanding of can you add value? Because if you start from there, then you're talking about building a great foundation that will reap rewards for well into the future. And you can see the companies that are that way. Because they don't talk the same talk that the average industry is talking.
They don't sound the same. They're not perceived the same. They seem to be in a categorization of their own because they are treating themselves differently. Right. Well, you know, again, we're left alone. Everybody left us, but it was nice to have everybody. And then the show notes. I mean, you see me run off and bang on that notes. There's been some really excellent points in today's show.
I do like when the whole party's here. The whole gang brings a diversity.
Well, we missed Holly and Stuart. I mean, you know, although he had family reasons.
Oh, by the way, so I called him and left him a voicemail the other day, and I just was being funny, and I'm like, "Hey, Stu Boo, is dead." So he's like, "Dude," he's like, "Stu Boo is my gaming like name."
Get out of town, really? Stu. Oh, I got to use that.
Stu Boo. Ladies and gentlemen, Stu Boo.
Stu Boo. No, Stuart. Yeah, he has the greatest, and to no end, the podcast really has become, if not one of the
great things in the industry. He puts out a lot of good in the world, and you know, and it's coming back. It's being good for him.
I think it really is establishing the value proposition of what fuel travel can do, and it's really great content.
So I was at the Navis conference last week. I mean, unless you have to go, I'd like to talk a little bit about this. Have you ever looked at their call center stuff?
Oh yeah, I was a big Navis fan for a long time early on, but and the limitation that was always a frustration for me was. This goes back a couple of years before they splintered it up. You had to get the whole thing or nothing. They didn't allow segmentation of their product.
Yeah, you can now buy narrowcast alone.
Right. And so that was always a frustration for because it was such a massive commitment of any hotel or let alone.
You want to hear something awesome. So last week was their leader conference. It also happened to be they officially got their level 1 PCI certification. Well, here's why that's interesting. And you wouldn't think about this, but they're a call center solution too. Like that's where their core is. Like that's where I think they're more CRM than pretty much anyone else because they come from the perspective of the different channels people buy on, where most CRMs are kind of one-dimensional. Like one's an email list manager, one's a group CRM. You know, like it's. But they got level 1 PCI certified while being able to keep recording calls.
Really?
What happens when you record a call in a reservations call center? You record the credit card. So they've actually been able to get their recordings encompassed in the PCI certification. So I asked them, I said, so what are your competitors doing? They all stopped doing call recording. Because they took the time. It was hard. Like it was really hard for them to get that figured out on how to do that.
Just security, inscription requirement, storage for that stuff.
So think about how impressive that is. Think about how impressive that is. I was so excited for them to hear that. Because listen, you know, it's an unintended consequence of PCI is, you can't keep these recordings, which means you can't learn as fast as you did. You can't do things as well as you've done them on how you analyze, the impact of each of your call center people, right?
That,
it's impressive, right?
Yeah.
Like I was super psyched for them on that.
I was talking to somebody, it wasn't Navis. They were saying that they had to every day scrub their calls by omitting any transactional data off of the recordings, which required a mandated recording. And they were doing a sniffer that was listening for number sequences in audio to literally blur it out. And that's the last time I ever heard anything about anybody trying to get compliant on recordings. So the fact that Navis can do that and keep and retain the recordings is pretty impressive, because this all stuff has to be encrypted, locked. It has
so that
to be
was
purged,
the first really exciting thing that they had to talk about. The second is Narrowcast is now completely cloud.
Oh, that's good.
So
that's very good.
Call center solution is completely cloud now.
Wow, that's it. Demand.
You can have reservations working remotely using this product, which is fantastic.
But I remember. See, now this is fun stuff, because I remember way back where part of the commitment to Navis was the hardware and expenditure that you had to build into your own system, because you had to local farm your stuff.
Well, that's the thing. So these are exciting developments. These are really exciting developments. They hired a great UX company to design the new experience on Narrowcast, which is amazing. The other thing they did is they built a full data repository of all sources of data for their clients. All sources of data.
Wow.
Yes. So now their enterprise reporting, the one that I loved the most, was how much each individual employee is making or costing the organization. And then you can drill in to the data to see what's making that up over periods of time.
Wow.
And it will tell you this person didn't ask for the sale over 46 interactions, where this person who's at $600,000 in value did. Yeah. And so they scrubbed it so you couldn't tell what client was, but they were using real client data, and they had an employee that was almost $1 million negative impact on the business.
Wow. This is helping me with a new client that I have that uses Navis.
So are you ready for what I did? So the other thing they show is, so they also do bulk email stuff. So I was asking about what kind of data was behind this, and it's really high quality data on what happened. So I asked him, I said, so can you trace back to when someone became unengaged, to a specific, what was the last email they engaged with?
Right.
And then did they ever engage again? And they said, absolutely. So I asked them, I said, so can you start putting that as a quantifiable impact to every campaign? Since you can look backwards and know that the last time they ever touched you was this, that's the campaign that burned the relationship, even if they didn't unsubscribe. So can you start putting a negative aspect on these revenue reports that says, yes, this campaign registered $130,000 in new sales, but burned $25,000 worth of database value?
Now, would that be calculated on the lifetime value of that individual interaction, or just that one event itself?
If the person completely disappeared.
Okay.
So you would have to do it right, you'd have to allow campaigns to continue before you can go back and rate a campaign. But you wouldn't have to go too far. If this is a person who, on average, engaged with an email that you sent once a month, okay, and then all of a sudden they just stopped. Well, what's the last one they touched? That's the campaign you burn them. It's pretty interesting, right? So they actually said they can do it. So now they're looking into, how do you quantify it? How do you measure it? And, how do you help people understand that, yes, there is an upside to these email blasts, but there is a downside.
Well, yeah, we've always had that on the burn list. I mean, you always talk about left and right.
But they can show it to an exact number, and then they can apply a value to it, which is even more interesting.
Yeah, I would almost, just not to be morbid, I would actually put a morbidity table in there as well, just because sometimes it's not due to lack of interest, it's due to lack of tragedy. But that number is probably going to be small.
You can actually, but here's the thing, you can adjust for that. That's an algorithm adjustment.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's a morbidity table. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, but how cool is that? So
that's very cool.
They've got some cool stuff happening. Their data layer is so exciting. So they're actually going to open it up to their partners too. So that means we're going to be able to start building stuff that takes advantage of Navis. Like, so, if you're a Navis customer, or you're using them in your call center, stuff like that, we'll be able to build stuff where, like, yeah, you know what? Our campaigns can now lead people to the call center, and you'll be able to track it, and your call center agents will be able to do something. We'll be able to feed them data, so when someone calls in that previously was an advocate, you can start with thank you. They really have done a lot of really neat things.
It's cool, and I'm going to have to ask you more questions about, because, like I said, new client, I actually have Navis availability that they use extensively. So I want to get up to speed on some of the new stuff, especially because if that's what can be done, then they need to start leveraging that. So that's good stuff. Huh.
Pretty exciting stuff.
Pretty exciting stuff. Mr. Ed, as always, thank you.
My pleasure.
The show today was, really a lot of fun. Like I said, I was really, for some reason, we were just keying in on some really good statements and content and perspectives that I think the show notes are really going to reflect. At least I hope so, because I was trying to fervently try to type in. I actually have to go back to 2 times that you were talking. I couldn't type fast enough, and I actually have big asterisks. Go back here and type notes. So I have to go back to a couple of points and fill in some of the notes before I post. But Mr. Ed, if people want to find you or Flip2, where is it that they can find you?
I'll be in Myrtle Beach next week, speaking at the Myrtle Beach Chamber's annual marketing review. But if you're not going to be there, you can find me on social media as Edward StOnge. And you can find out about Flip2 by going to flip.to. And Mr. Loren Gray, if people want to find you, where should they
on
go?
the sidewalk? Usually on the sidewalk. At least it was for one night. They can go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com. It's a very short URL. It's so easy to type. It's no spelling errors there. /live if you want to go over and get to any of the archive links to the previous show, including this show, as well as show notes. And a replay of the show, in which I edit it by putting an intro and little third bars. And then if you ever want to watch the tail end, because I get humorous, or attempted humor anyway, on the closing credits of the show, where I put in things
this is how
like,
I never look at our recordings.
Because I put in some stuff, and it's like, thanks, Mr. Ed, for such a great dialogue, or we ran out of time for you this week or something. I try to throw all that stuff at the really closing content, so it's in there. But anyway, you can see all the archives and shows for that. We will be on show number 136 next week, and we are building up a guest list roster of people. We want to get, of course, you gave a great recommendation of getting Dan Waxman back, who did a wonderful presentation just recently, to get him back onto the show. He's been a previous guest of ours. Also, too, we have, we're going to get Neil, now that he's on his own. And I just spent some time with him in Washington, D.C., and he's really got some great insights on ancillary revenue generation for hotels, for the food and beverage, golf, and so forth, and really great insight stuff that I hope you can share with us. Nice. Then there's also... I'm drawing a blank, but there's a third from, we talked to him at HSMAI. He walked by, he couldn't join us for the show, but wants his CEO to join us. I think I blind CEO on the email that I was sent back to him.
From Screen Pilot.
Screen Pilot, thank you. Screen Pilot, yes.
Yeah. Good people.
So we're hopefully get them on. So we're going to have some interesting guest co-hosts coming up. I got a wicked amount of travel coming up in April, which is going to be interesting. But hopefully with the guest hosts coming through and so forth, we'll have some fun with them as well. To everyone that watched the show live or recorded for us, it is so fun. And this is one closing note. So I go over and I have the privilege of speaking with Two Roads Hospitality in DC to their conference. And for people to come up and be like, hey, I watched your show that you guys did this. I'm like, seriously, that is so cool. That is so cool that people come up and say, a lot of them, ironically, they listen rather than watch, which is good because, we have faith in radio.
That's really good, because that also means that they're actually getting work done.
Yeah, they're good. And they do. I had 3 people went over and tell me how they have it in the background, that they either play it live or will go back to the recording and play it in the background because they love listening to the dialogue and the little, rabbit holes we go down to. So, or tangents or whatever. It was kind of fun to have people come up and know you from the show. Like, man, I listen to your show. It's great. I said, why don't you join us? No. You guys, I probably couldn't get a word in. I'm like, yeah, that's probably true, but you just got to push and use sharp elbows.
Elbows, man.
Yeah.
It's all about the sharp elbows.
Yeah. So with that, Mr. Ed, thank you very much again. And for everyone, Tim for joining us, Darlene for joining us, Robert for joining us, Holly, sorry we ran out of time, couldn't have you join the show. Stuart, sorry we ran out of time, couldn't have you join the show, but we hope next week we can get you fit in. With that, bye everyone. We'll talk to you next week for show number 136.